The winter that nearly killed her arrived without warning, the kind of cold that did not announce itself with gentle snowfall, but with a sudden, merciless silence that pressed down on the valley like a lid on a coffin. Elias's crow noticed it first in the way his breath froze thick in his beard before he even reached the barn, in the way the horses stamped nervously as if they sensed death riding the wind. He had lived alone on his ranch for 7 years now, long enough to read the land better than people, and the land was telling him something was wrong. The snow had come too early, too fast, burying the road that connected his property to the neighboring homestead of Samuel Hargreaves, an older man who lived a mile east, and rarely spoke more than necessary. Elias did not think much of it at first. Winters here were always cruel, but when 3 days passed without seeing smoke from Samuel's chimney, unease began to gnaw at him. Samuel was sick. Everyone knew that, a lung illness that made every breath sound like it scraped glass. Elias saddled his horse before dawn on the 4th day, the sky a pale, unforgiving gray, and rode out through snow that reached nearly to the animal's chest. The silence was so complete it rang in his ears. When he reached Samuel's cabin, he found the door hanging open, snow blown inside like a shroud. Samuel lay slumped in his chair near the cold hearth, eyes open, face frozen in a look that suggested he had known this moment was coming and had been too tired to fight it. Elias stood there for a long time, hat in his hands, feeling the weight of a death that no one else would witness. It was then he noticed the letters scattered across the table and floor, envelopes stamped and addressed in careful ink, some unopened, others torn and read so often the paper had gone soft. Mail order correspondence. Elias frowned. He remembered Samuel once mentioning in an embarrassed mutter that he had sent away for a wife. A foolish hope, he had said. Coughing hard afterward, Elias gathered the letters, intending to burn them out of respect when his eyes caught a final envelope half crumpled near the door. This one was newer, the paper clean, the ink dark. Inside was a short note written in a stranger's hand, shaky but determined. I will arrive before the first heavy snow. Please meet me at the road. Elias felt the cold sink deeper into his bones. The first heavy snow had already fallen hard. His mind raced with possibilities he did not want to consider, but his body moved before his thoughts finished forming. He followed the road westward, or what remained of it, scanning the drifts, the ditches, the white nothingness stretching endlessly between dark trees. He was about to turn back, convinced he was chasing a ghost, when something unnatural broke the smooth curve of the snowbank ahead, a shape too soft, too human. Elias dismounted and ran, boots sinking, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the wind. She lay half buried near the edge of the road, a thin veil frozen stiff over her hair, her dress torn and soaked, one bare hand clutching a bundle of letters pressed to her chest as if they were the only warmth left in the world. Her skin was pale, lips blue, lashes dusted with ice. For a terrible moment, Elias thought he was too late. Then he saw the faintest rise and fall of her chest. Hey, he said, his voice breaking the silence like a gunshot. Hey, don't you die on me. He tore off his coat and wrapped it around her, scooping her up with an urgency that surprised him. She was lighter than she should have been, like a child, and frighteningly cold. He did not know her name, did not know her story, but he knew this. If he left her there, she would be dead within minutes. The ride back to his ranch felt endless. He held her against him, murmuring nonsense words, promises he was not sure he could keep. At the house, he carried her inside, laid her near the stove, fed the fire until the room glowed with heat, rubbed her hands and feet until his own burned. Slowly, painfully, slowly, color crept back into her face. She coughed, a weak sound, and her eyes fluttered open. Fear flashed there first, then confusion. She tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper came out. Elias leaned closer. You're safe, he said, though the word tasted strange. You're on my ranch. My name's Elias. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down into her hair. She turned her head weakly toward the bundle of letters he had set beside her, fingers trembling as they touched them. Samuel, she whispered. Elias swallowed. I'm sorry, he said softly. He's gone. The sob that tore out of her was raw, filled with grief for a man she had barely known yet had crossed continents to meet. In that moment, watching her cry in his lonely cabin while a storm howled outside, Elias understood that finding her in the snow was only the beginning. Whatever had brought her here, whatever fate had claimed Samuel, this woman's life was now tangled with his, and winter had only just begun. When dawn finally crept through the frost-laced window, Elias had not slept. He sat in the wooden chair beside the bed he had fashioned near the stove, listening to the uneven rhythm of her breathing, half afraid that if he closed his eyes even for a moment, the silence would return and steal her away. Outside, the storm had exhausted itself, leaving the world buried and hushed, as if the land itself were holding its breath. She stirred as the first light touched her face, color stronger now, life stubbornly clinging to her despite everything that had tried to claim it. Her eyes opened slowly, clearer this time. And when they met Elias's, something softened in her expression. "I'm Anna," she said, her voice still fragile, but steadier than before. "Anna Petrova." She explained in broken sentences how she had come from far away with nothing but hope, and Samuel's letters, how the stagecoach had left her at the main road before the storm. Worse, and how she had waited and then begun walking when fear grew heavier than the cold. Samuel never came. By the time she realized something was wrong, the snow was already swallowing the path behind her. Elias listened without interrupting, guilt twisting in his chest, though he knew none of it was his doing. When she finished, there was a long silence between them, filled with the crackle of the fire and the weight of unspoken questions. "You can stay here," Elias said finally, surprising himself with how certain the words sounded. "At least until you're strong enough to decide what comes next." Anna searched his face. Perhaps expecting expectations, something owed. Finding none, she nodded, tears shining again, this time mixed with relief. The days that followed was slow and deliberate, shaped by healing and the quiet discovery of shared space. Anna learned the rhythm of the ranch, the way Elias spoke more to animals than people, the gentleness hidden beneath his rough hands. Elias, in turn, learned the sound of laughter in his house again, hesitant at first, then growing bolder. She helped where she could, mending clothes, preparing meals with flavors he had forgotten existed, and telling stories of a life that felt impossibly distant from the snowbound valley. Yet the shadow of Samuel lingered, unspoken, but present, until one evening Anna placed the letters into Elias's hands. "He gave me hope when I had none," she said softly. "But he never promised love, only a chance." Elias nodded. "And now?" he asked. She looked around the cabin at the firelight dancing on the walls, at the man who had pulled her from death without asking for anything in return. "Now I want a life," she said. Spring came slowly, as it always did, but when it arrived, it transformed everything. Snow receded, revealing earth ready to be worked again. Anna's strength returned fully, and with it a sense of belonging neither of them had expected. The neighbors took notice, whispers traveling faster than the Thor about the lone rancher and the bride who had come for another man. Elias braced himself for judgment, but it never came in the way he feared. Hard lives bred understanding, and people saw what mattered. On a clear morning, months after the storm, Elias and Anna stood together at the edge of the land, the future stretching wide before them. There was no dramatic declaration, no grand promise, just hands finding each other steady and sure. Some stories begin with love. Theirs began with survival, with kindness in the face of loss, and with a choice made not out of obligation, but out of hope. And if this story moved you, if you believe that even in the coldest moments, compassion can change everything, don't forget to subscribe to the